So in this video, I'll show you this button effect. So there are all these objects that move across the surface of the button, and it ends up with this color explosion. Okay, so let's create an index.html file. Press exclamation and tab. Let's give this a title, hover style. In the body, we'll add an anchor tag, and let's give it a label, hover me. We'll also add a span element in there. Let's also create a style.css file. And back in the index, we'll just link the style file to our index.html file. So let's add a link tag in there, style.css. In a CSS file, let's target the body element first. We'll give it a height, 100 viewport, display flex, justify content center, align item center, background, RGB, 253, 241, 241. We'll target the anchor element. We'll remove the underline with text decoration none. We'll give it a color 251E1E. Font family sans serif. Font size, let's give it 45 pixels. Okay, so that's looking all right. Border, we'll give it 5 pixels solid. 251E1E. And we'll just give it a bit of padding, 30 pixels on the top and bottom, 60 pixels on the left and right. And position relative. We'll also just add a transition. We'll need it later, so we'll just add it now. Transition all 0.5 seconds. So we'll create the before pseudo element against the anchor tag, and we'll create an after pseudo element. We'll also create a before pseudo element against span and an after pseudo element against the span. Okay, so we'll target these 4 elements with content, empty string, position, absolute, height, 30 pixels. So that's the height of a pseudo element, and width, 30 pixels as well. Z index, we'll just give it -1 so it doesn't cover the button. Transition, transform 0.5 seconds. Okay, so we can't see any pseudo element right now, but we'll target each element separate. So A, before, so position 0 from the right and 0 from the top. And we'll give it a background color of yellow. Okay, so we can see our pseudo element now. Transform, we'll just move the pseudo element 30 pixels to the right. Okay, so that's position fine. We'll target the anchor tag and the after pseudo element. So we'll position it left and top 0. We'll give it a background color of RGB 173, 241, 236. We'll move it -30 pixels to the left. So this time it'll be on the left side of the button, as you can see. We'll give it a border radius of 50% to turn it into a round circle. So there we go. So we've got our 2 pseudo elements positioned. We'll give it a Z index of -1. And I think we'll just leave it at that and move on to our span and target the before pseudo element. Position 0 pixels from the right and bottom. We'll give it a background color of RGB 145, 127, 247. Okay, and we'll move it, transform, translate X 30 pixels to the right. Okay, so let's target the span after element. We'll position it 0 from the left and bottom. And we'll give it a background color of RGB 123, 243, 139. And we'll also move it minus 30 pixels to the left. So transform, translate X, minus 30 pixels. So that'll position all our 4 pseudo elements where we want them. So that's good. So let's create the hover effects now. So we'll target the anchor element, a hover, and the before pseudo element. So we'll create a box shadow. So this one is the yellow element on the right top. So we'll create the box shadow. When we hover over the anchor tag, we want a box shadow to appear. So let's say 70 pixels, 00, RGB. So we'll give it a color of one of the other buttons. So for example, this. So what that means is when I hover over the button, the box shadow appears. Okay, so let's target all our other pseudo elements as well. Hover and the after. So we'll just leave it blank for now because we don't have any animations yet. Let's target the anchor tag, a hover, and this time we want the before pseudo element of the span. Before, and in this case also we'll create a box shadow, 70 pixels, 00, RGB, and we'll again give it a color of one of the other buttons. So let's say this one. So now we have 2 pseudo elements on the right side. They both have the box shadow when we hover over the anchor tag. Let's keep going. For the span after element, again, we will come back to it later. Okay, we'll also address the corners of the button. So we want them to round slightly. So we'll use border radius. We'll just give it 50%. So now when we hover over the button, the corners round slightly. Okay, for the animations, we'll create it using keyframes. So we'll create 2 keyframe animations. Let's create the first one, keyframes move left. And we'll create another one, keyframes move right, because we want enough random movement of all these objects. So we'll create 2 different animations. So for the first one, we'll start with 0%, transform, translate, and we'll give it 00. We'll create another one at 20%, transform, translate. Again, you can pick up any kind of numbers there just to create some random movement. So I'll go ahead and complete the rest of the keyframe animation. And we'll repeat the same for the move right, just with different numbers. One thing to note is the scale. So this is where towards the end, the different pseudo elements cover the button with different colors. So that happens because we are scaling the pseudo elements to 12 times their size in this case. So now the keyframes are done. So the only thing left for us is to add these keyframe animation. So at the moment, as you can see, the corners are working, the pseudo element box shadow is working. So we just need to get the animations added to our pseudo element. So we'll go up and we'll start with our anchor tag, and the before pseudo element, and we'll add move left 0.5 seconds. Okay, there we go. So the pseudo element is now moving, and then it scales towards the end. And we'll move right 0.5 seconds. Again, you can play around with these, whether you want move left on the after pseudo element. So again, there's just some random movement, so you can play around with the effect that you like. Animation, move left 0.5 seconds, and we'll just add another one here. Animation, move left or move right, doesn't really matter. Okay, so there we go. So now all the elements move in different direction, and you get that nice effect. So the only thing left for us is to hide the pseudo elements. So we'll go to the anchor tag and we'll say overflow hidden. So now when we hover, we see that elements move, and then they cover the button towards the end. So we'll see it in the full screen. So there we go.